unanimous.
Yeah, pretty unanimous.
Which is good for my question. Maureen Corbett from Wynyard. My question's to sort of all of you. We have a preferential system in the voting that's coming up. That means that it is possible that some of you may actually get into Parliament. Now you have well, I don't know whether it was all of you, but a lot of you said put Labor and Liberal last. Now, if you cooperate, I can see that some of you could get in. Now, that would mean that you all agree together to put the people who are not here last. That's my comment. Yep. Does anyone want to say anything?
So how it would work, House of Reps, we only get to elect one person from the electorate of Braddon. However, in the Senate, we obviously have 6 Senate seats up for grabs this election. So you're probably referring to the Senate. Is that what you mean?
Well, yes.
Yep.
But I don't give up on the House of Reps.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would like one of you to be it. I can tell you which one, but I won't.
Very good. So no question, just a statement?
Look, I'd like people to comment. I'd like to hear from you if you've all analysed how the preferential system could work and whether are you willing, if you have a how to vote thing, and I don't think you all need to, but if you do, are you willing to put all of you in front of Labor Liberal? Not that anybody here is told how to vote. You obviously, we want to get across to the electorate that you choose how to vote.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that since 2016, obviously the preferences have started to work slightly differently. So for anyone who's concerned in the audience, we don't choose where your preferences go anymore. We can just advise. So as you say,
you should never choose. Yeah.
The how to vote cards is a great idea. I haven't actually got ours for Braddon sorted out yet, but I expect you'd find that for the Animal Justice Party, our how to vote cards will involve a lot of the smaller parties well before we go to the majors.
Good.
Yep.
That's what
Anyone
I want
else?
to hear from all of you.
I was just going to say, from the Greens' point of view, we will have a suggested how to vote card, but please do the research, make your own decisions, and you can make your choice.
Maureen, thanks for the question. As an independent, I don't do how to vote cards. I encourage everyone to vote below the line because that's the only place you can vote for me. Very last on the Senate ballot. And I've actually asked most of the parties how their preferences have gone. No one's preferenced me. I actually got a call from Nick McKim saying, sorry, we didn't put you as a preference, but it's party decision, maybe we'll do it next year, next election or something. But I'm not in a position to do any preference deals, and it doesn't seem like anyone wants to preference me. So that's what I've got to add.
Sophie, did you want to...
I just wanted to say we still haven't decided, but this is helpful for our decision to know where everyone sits, because it doesn't sound good for Labor and Liberal.
Darren?
Yep. Actually, there's been reports in the paper that you guys have done your preferences, Sophie, so that would be great for you to clear up. It's actually been in the paper that you preference Liberal in Braddon, so
I'm the candidate for Braddon. I have not preferenced Liberal for Braddon, so I don't know where that came from.
The Australian newspaper. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I think the preference deals have been done because the major parties have put out their deals, so I find it extraordinary actually if Jackie and you haven't.
I haven't done a deal. I don't know any deals, so that's
Jackie's shaking her head up the back there, so that's a no from Jackie. I guess at the end of the day, I guess I'll just get in here because obviously I understand the electoral system as well. Parties can tell you how to vote as much as they like, but ultimately it's up to you at the end of the day, when you get to the ballot box, how you vote. That's your decision. No party, no one can tell you how to vote. You've only got to, on the House of Reps ticket, which is green, you've got to vote, put a number in every box to make it valid. And on the Senate, you can either vote above the line, you have to put at least 6, and below the line, you have to put at least 12. They're the only requirements, right? And there's a really helpful lot of information on the Australian Electoral Commission website. If you're on Twitter, they're doing heaps of activity on Twitter about videos, how to vote cards. Please educate yourself. It's a really simple process, and to put in a valid vote, we live in a democracy. We're one of the fortunate countries. Think about all the people in the world that don't have democracy or the right to vote. So therefore your vote is important. A lot of people will say, oh, what's the point? I may as well vote for a donkey or whatever. That's a wasted vote. You actually have a right to say, you have a right to vote for, somebody. So yeah, please, educate yourself. There's also a number of websites where you can, this is what I do, because I like to number every box below the line in the Senate. There's like 40-something candidates, 44 I think it is. So you can actually pre-do that before you go to the ballot box. So you can go to a website, put all your candidates in order, print out a sheet, and then take that to the ballot box and fill it out, because it does get a little bit tricky.
There's just one thing that I'd like to add, if that's okay, that there seems to be that perception stays in the community that, we don't want the Liberals in, so we've got to put Labor up there. I just want to make it, crystal clear that we could probably put all of you before Labor and Liberal, and we'll end up with one of them anyway. So if you put everybody like these wonderful independents in front of Labor, we hope that we get enough votes that they might actually get in there before Labor. But say you did that and then you put Labor second last, say, your vote would go to Labor. So, just think
I guess
about it.
I was speaking to someone about this earlier too, that you would hope that the major parties, who are both not here, so I guess we can bag them out as much as we like, they'd actually they would take stock. If they are seeing a large proportion of votes from Braddon going to minor candidates, just because they don't get in, they may actually go, hang on a minute here, we're seeing 400, 5,000, whatever it was. I think Craig, last time he got in was 3,000 or 4,000 number one votes. Yeah.
I think it was
So
6,600, 10.8% of the vote.
So that is considerate, and you would hope that the major parties are starting to take notice and go, maybe we don't have things right here. Maybe we need to pull up our pants and actually come out and listen to the community. A couple more voices, and then we've got a couple of questions from the audience.
I'll just go on from what Corey was saying. When I got that 10.8% in the vote, I was flown straight to Canberra not long after by a powerful union and shown around for 3 days. Because they were calling me the kingmaker. I was treated like a rock star walking through Parliament House. It was an eye-opener. And you got to remember, the Liberal National Party, they make up, I think, 37% of the vote, right? That coalition is what is dictating to the other 60-odd% of this country what we do or don't take. And if we combine, if we put them last and stop those preferences going to those major parties, it just may well end up with one of us. My overflow, what happens? The first one with the lowest primaries goes out and their preference is second on, gets distributed to the others, and then the next one goes out. Putting them last makes sure they don't get a cracker until it's all over. And in between, there's a possibility that someone will get in from our midst if we work together and focus on them. And that's very important because it's a collaborative approach, which is what democracy is about. It's not a dictation.
Any more answers on the how to votes?
Yeah,
question?
I just wanted to say thank you for everyone turning up, because you're here because you're interested in us. We're the ones who are on your voting card, not Scott Morrison, not Anthony Albanese, not Craig Kelly, not Jackie, not Pauline. All you ever see in the media is their names. That's it. You don't see our names, well, except for the two the Liberal and Labor person. So I just wanted to say to everybody here who took an interest in every one of us, thank you, because we're the ones that you'll be voting for, not the ones in Canberra that you hear in the mainstream media all the time.
All right, question from the floor. Hello.
Thank you. Susan Hartley, I would like to know if if you're elected, would you ask that the Parliament insist on having a vote if we decide to go to war, even an undeclared war? Because at the moment we don't have that say. We had young men and women sent into Iraq when over 70% of the Australian population said we don't believe in the bullshit we've been fed about Iraq, and we don't want our young men and women going in there, suffering the traumas, and then being sent back and left to soldier on their own. My grandfather was a Gallipoli veteran, and I know what happened to him, and it hasn't changed. These people are still left to pick up their own mental health, their physical health. It affects their family. It's an ongoing trauma that's been built into the Australian community. It's part of the reason we have these high levels of domestic violence and these high levels of mental health, ill health. We're spending trillions on the arms manufacturers, and even then they don't get it right, and we just chuck money, trillions away, as if we've got money to burn. This is a generational debt that will be carried forward for many generations, and yet we can't feed our children, we can't house our people, we can't even manage to control our food supply. It's very insecure. How would you stand on that decision that a Parliament must make a vote before it's taken into any war?
Fair to Craig, looks like. Craig? Yep.
Yeah, I'm a pacifist. If people and the people of this planet haven't realised by now that war only makes money for people, we deal with the trauma, the post-traumatic stress disorder associated with it. I will never put a vote towards sending troops off to fight in this country, and anybody that wishes to do that as a politician should stand up and go over there and fight with them, in my book.
Over to Fenella.
My main concern about putting a vote to Parliament about that issue would be that Parliament's still made up of mostly Labor and Liberal, and they're both taking money from corporations that benefit from war. So a vote put to the Parliament might not work unless you vote for independence. I'm against sending Australian troops overseas. My great-uncle was one of the last remaining rats of Tobruk, and I asked him what he thought about war, and he didn't say a lot, but he did say it should never happen. And I take that on board.
Yep, over to Scott.
Thanks very much, Susan, for your passion in that question. It sounds like there's two things. There's the war issue and you asking us whether we would work to for a change in legislation. So I've made a note of that. I'll talk to Leanne. We have citizen juries come up, should one of us get in. We'd want you to come back to us to see where we got in terms of that policy. But it's very intriguing, and you've obviously it's ingrained in your family's life, and so you're an expert on the consequences. We will look at the local party and think about that as an issue should we get in. Appreciate it. But
Duncan.
Similar answer. We would not really support a vote because we would not support war. Libertarianism has a long history of being anti-war, and that's really just because we have an issue taking taxpayers' money to the war effort. So our preference would be if there's a devastating, a poor country that's struggling to defend itself, would be that the people of Australia would voluntarily fund and assist that nation rather than doing it through political means.
Okay, and Ivan's just informed me he's got some experience in this area.
I was a soldier in the regular Australian Army for 23 years. So I thought I'd better say something. I'd never fired a shot in anger in any of the theatres that my mates have been involved in. It's pretty too hard, isn't it? Too many suicides. Too many. It's just too many. And here I am now with the Animal Justice Party, and one of our core values is non-violence. And sometimes non-violence is harder than violence. It's harder to be non-violent than it is, in the Mahatma Gandhi type of ethos, it's harder. firing a gun, firing a cannon, driving a tank, whatever, it's relatively easy. But the damage afterwards, there's nothing easy about it whatsoever. So to precisely answer your question, which was, would you try and make sure that the Parliament has to vote before we send our young people to war? Absolutely. Thank you.
Darren Bobman and then Darren Briggs, by the looks of the order. No, you're good, Darren Briggs.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Susan. Schoolyard fights don't work. Absolutely, you know, looking at discussions, diplomacy, improving foreign aid, addressing the key issues in our region. If you look at, let's take Solomon Islands, recent concerns that, you know...
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, look, you know, like all the discussion that's been kind of arced up over this election campaign with the Solomon Islands is, you know, going in the wrong direction. We need to support, engage and, you know, be diplomatic with our neighbours and prevent war at all costs. There's no doubt about that. I know the Greens did put up some legislation in this Parliament or the previous Parliament that made it more difficult for government to go to war. I can't recall the details, so if you can contact me and I'll find the answer for that. Definitely peace and diplomacy. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak on that one? No? Yep. No question.
Hi, thanks. Marianne McDonald and I live in Burnie. Just wanted to say thank you all for what you're doing. It's a brave, a courageous and generous thing that you're doing to stand up for your beliefs. I just wanted to make a quick comment about preferences. I'm 67 and I think this federal election is one of the most important elections of my lifetime. I cannot emphasise that enough. The Liberal-Labor system, the old party system, is completely broken in this country. I think I support Craig and Darren's views in relation to preferences. It behoves each one of you to know who your party is preferencing and be very clear about that. And I think it is, you know, strategy is everything when you're trying to kick a very, very dangerous party out of government for the welfare of this country. I'd ask the Clive Palmer representative here, Darren Bubberman, who is the Clive Palmer giving their preferences to in this election?
Well, first of all, it's Liberal, Labor, Greens will be the bottom three. I believe the Liberal Democrats, there's been talk in the past, this isn't confirmed, but I do know that there has been talk with the Liberal Democrats. That's been all over the media. I've got my opinions on who I would like to make recommendations to, purely because I've had the opportunity to get to know some of the candidates that sit up here and some that don't sit up aren't here as well. And it's a very difficult question to give you an honest answer at the moment without actually telling you who I want to tell you. But
your party will have directed you in relation to this matter?
Not at this stage, they haven't.
Okay.
But I will be giving them my 2 cents worth on who I believe they should be recommending, put it that way. And it will be the main freedom parties at the top, and as you work your way through to the bottom.
Okay. Be very, very careful. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Darren Briggs.
I was going to say, Darren, Clive Palmer at his National Press Club address a few weeks ago said he's going to put the Greens second. What's happened?
I think we all know he was joking.
Okay, we have a question from Dylan Roberts.
Hello guys, how are yous? Thanks very much for stepping up and doing this, appreciate it a lot. Braddon is one of the most important regions in Australia. People don't realise that. It's a very volatile area. It can swing a whole federal election. Couple of questions in this one. When is it going to reflect how important we actually are to federal politics? Which is which party, which one of you is actually going to prioritise this region and funding for future projects that council and other visionaries are working on? And the second part of it is, As minorities, what actually can you do to deal with major party to ensure that resources do flow into the grassroots in our region? Thank you.
Yep. Who'd like to take a stab at that?
I'm happy to go first. I think we are all passionate about local politics here, and I think that's basically spoken for by, again, the fact that we haven't got the major parties here. We've been speaking a lot about preferences today, and that's great. You're right, we probably should be slightly more on top of it. Unfortunately, it's obviously been a very short election, so it's a bit hard to get some of those things formally done at the party level and at the candidate level, which is why we've been a bit cagey with some of those responses. But I think fundamentally, it comes down to people like you invigorating the rest of the people in Braddon to empower one of us into a seat, and that will get us through the door, and that'll get you someone who actually cares about the local area instead of just someone using it as a foothold into a federal position that they can then get other things. What can we do to help locals? Honestly, the great thing about having a minority party is that you get to put forward new legislation, especially in the lower house. Sorry to the Senate candidates, that's not so much for you, but in the lower house we can put forward legislation that will affect Braddon and Tasmania, and that will then either force the major parties to accept it or to reject it publicly, and that will give you an understanding of what they prioritise and where they're putting you on their lists. So I think the short answer is get one of us in, and then we'll do what we can.
Great. Fenella?
Okay. So the politician answer would be to say, oh, Braddon's really important, I'm going to put all the money in. But I'm not a politician, I'm a person, and I'm a person running for politics who believes in the power of the people. And I want to represent Tasmania, all of Tasmania. I don't want to prioritise a particular area, but I want all of Tasmania to thrive. So I wouldn't be saying I want to support Braddon over the other electorates. I want to support all of Tasmania.
Sorry, I was just going to say, apart from the seat of Clark, which is held by Andrew Wilkie, it's pretty clear that Albanese and Morrison are very keen to get their hands on the seats down here. You've got Bass, which has got a 0.4% margin. Braddon's, I think, is about 3.1. So they know how close it is and how important Tasmania is. I think they've both been down here, 2-3 times, touring around, doing a bit of pork barrelling, promising this and that and all over the place. So they do know how important Tasmania is to their power. And I think what's going to happen is you will have a hung parliament this year because of all the independents. And if you get independent, whether it be one of us in Braddon, that empowers us. And that will make a difference for your electorate. So Tasmania is absolutely key to, either party's gaining power. Absolutely.
Scott, you had an answer as well?
G'day, mate.
Hey, Scott.
Good to see you. Just a couple of things. I don't want to win. I think that's a bit of a blunt strategy. I will represent with passion at a bigger table all the issues that I've fought for over the last 30 years and in the time span of Big Art, which is 30 this month. The natural state of this country and its political system is a little bit like Jackie. It is an independent system that has been slowly taken over by two sides, or three, now with the Greens 4. And there is an inherent way in which independents are powerful, providing their independence with integrity. And there's quite a lot of integrity sitting at this table. I personally will be voting for Craig, number one.
So will I.
So I just want to say that. I'm not interested...
Are you supposed to put you first? You can vote for yourself, Scott.
No,
it is
I'm
allowed.
Craig won. Craig won, me too, and Craig's doing the same. So that's good. That was a preference deal we just made.
Preference deal exposed. Breaking news right here. Exclusive.
Because I don't think politics is what's important. I think it's about being able to listen, being able to represent locally with a global ear, and backing people who are doing a great thing. And I just want to say this. Dollars is one thing. Gavin Pearce has put out the Gavin Post. You've all had it in your letterbox. He names in that, and I like Gavin. He's got a lot of life experience in lots of different ways. It's not fair in the Gav Post to put projects that Big Art is delivering, projects that volunteers are delivering, as wins for Gav. I didn't even know I was in there until I read it. So, and just to be clear, I don't want that to be adversarial. I would say the same thing to Gav. He's got to be a bit more careful. In the privilege of serving big art, I've raised $80 million. To do that, I've applied for and tried to raise $200 million, and that money goes to disadvantaged communities around the country. The possibility of standing with people like Jackie, people with integrity, people who aren't one-sided about politics, is very intriguing to me as a 62-year-old who was burnt out with working at the grassroots level. And I don't want to win, but I do want Leanne, stand up please, from the local party to get in the Senate to bring some progressive, smart thinking, and she's not a dick, I know that. She's a smart woman who knows politics. She's a little bit, sometimes she's tried to fool me because she, you know, in the things that she says, but you can hold her to account. And I would like her to sit next to Jackie in the Senate, and I will run and tell people about Leanne. If I accidentally get elected, yous are all in trouble.
Just as a quick aside for Nella, just to explain this, Waratah, as a region, is 3,500 kilometres squared. You know, we predominantly, we make up less than 2% of Tasmania's population, and we provide 12.7% of Tasmania's mining workforce. We also provide the timber industry, the fisheries industry, the renewables industry. We provide all the manufacturing, all the prefab and everything.
And the cultural industry, buddy.
Yeah, right, we do. But just, this is what the farming, the agriculture, the beef. When will the actual federal funding match our contribution to this country?
Well, I can't give you a date on that, unfortunately. But if I get elected, then I would try and work towards seeing one. The Braddon's very close. I actually drove from Waratah to Wynyard today.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a bit miserly. But yeah, very beautiful. And also I used to spend all my summer holidays up in Preservation Bay with my nan, and I really love this area. And I think, as far as the mining goes, I think instead of starting a whole bunch of new mines, it would be better to establish a film industry in Tasmania, and I'd like to see a professional soundstage built in Tasmania to attract lots of big dollars from the film industry, and I'd like to see that built on the West Coast where the mining jobs would otherwise be.
Duncan.
Our approach, Lib Dems, would probably, just to say, we don't really want to fight for the Braddon area to receive funding federally, because we just don't want it to be taken away federally. So we would approach it with less taxation, so that Canberra then decides how it's spent and distributed. We'd rather that never be taken away in the first place.
Good. And back to, should I go back to Scott?
I'd love it if you went back to Scott. Thanks, Corey.
Just a couple of things, and again, you know, appreciate your backing of primary industries in this question. Just to illustrate how we sold myths, the arts and culture industry is worth $111 billion a year to Australia. It is 6.4% of the GDP, the gross national product. It employs over 800,000 people nationally, and we are hopeless advocates because we're all pansies like me, so we don't get out there and talk about where the real dollars are happening, that are ongoing, and they are dollars that Indigenous people and young people who are interested, whose whole life is culture, can get an entry point. So as long as you include that in your future questioning of politicians, that it is a primary industry and sitting alongside those others, I will be an advocate for attracting the kind of support that we need to get from the federal government, so we don't sit in the shadows in Braddon, and I'll be doing that just by the force of passion of backing Leanne.
Just as a person that made a lot of money through the art myself, Scott, and also has an Indigenous background, it's more for my mates that get up at 3 a.m. and put on the wet weathers, mate, that question's for, because we need to ensure that we're respected for the contribution we make to the country's economy. So,
thank you. So, more questions from the floor.
I was just going to say, like, our health, like, is really low indices here. You know, we have really suffering chronic illness. We have an ageing demographic. We have lots of social injustice. So absolutely, this area needs proportionate spending on those topics. And I guess just by being here, we're going to be calling out and doing that. And just to remember that anyone in the crossbenchers, BU Greens, BU Independents, has a critical role to play and really influential to pull the major parties in the direction of good. And we should be really proud that we're going to be doing that, whoever we are up there, that's for sure. As far as those other industries we've mentioned, you know, there's a lot more potential for those industries like forestry. I mean, the carbon storage credits that we could be earning from them and their response to climate change and revegetation and things is amazing. So there's so much more we can do and build those industries in this area as well. Thanks.
Yep.
And based on need, like everything needs to be based on need. So we'd take a science-based approach, and if the need is there, then we'd be advocating that for Braddon. If it's not, we wouldn't.
Great.
Yeah, my greatest benefit is that they don't want me there, and if I get there, they'll want that seat back, and to get that seat back, they'll have to address what I'll be putting forward, which is what the community wants. I will be seeking funding for archaeology on the Aboriginal fish traps that predate the pyramid, for a holistic management approach to linking up the pathways and tracks and camping grounds that I grew up and walked on as a kid, take the kids out of the high school to highlight, warts and all, good and bad, what was done to the Aboriginal people of this area. Goldie, for instance, put a statue down the bottom end of the street and tell everybody the good, the bad, the lot, and embrace it, get our kids on board. Dr. Ian McFarlane's work, that can be embraced, he's got it all there. It's just a matter of linking up those pathways, those tracks. Robbins Island, the most significant Aboriginal site on this coast, that's where the 10 tribes met every October. They want to turn it into a mine, a wind farm, they want to impact those 20,000 migratory birds that are there. What we have to do is focus on what we have, not what we don't have. And we have it in bucket loads. The pathways there, the camping grounds are there, the nature that's coming back now with our fisheries. We've got an old demographic in our fisheries, policy for bringing the young in. I'm the spring chicken, I'm nearly 60. This is all doable. They will throw money and they will give you what you want if you put me there, because they do not want me there.
All right.